Hello and welcome to the most northerly circuit on the TCR UK calendar. We're here at Croft for round 11 and 12 of TCR UK, and as the season draws to a close, this is the penultimate race meeting. Dan Lloyd currently leads the way, 78 points ahead of Ollie Taylor after his early season dominance, but Ollie Taylor himself has been piling on the pressure at the top. Dan needs to outscore Ollie by 13 points to win the title today, or it'll all be decided at Donington Park. The lines have been drawn. Let battle commence. Game on indeed. Well, early on it did look like Dan was going to walk the title without any real challenger, but since then Ollie has come on leaps and bounds and is really pushing. But who will occupy the #1 spot? We caught up with both drivers to find out their thoughts on the season so far.
So in terms of my development, this has been a new year for me, new style of racing. There's been a lot to learn, new cars, new format of racing, new championship, and certainly a new challenge.
I've had a strong run all year and only been off the podium once and had quite a few wins, and you know, it's the penultimate round and it's still sort of, you know, I could still lose it. It's still that possibility.
We've thought of ourselves as in the fight a little bit more each round. Didn't quite know what to expect coming into the start of the year, but yeah, now we're sat here second in the points. You know, we want to turn up to all the next 4 races, giving it everything and really take, you know, the fight to Dan.
The championship fight is still there. I've got a good lead. Ollie's been strong everywhere as well, so we can't drop the ball now. We need to stay focused and make sure we get the strong points.
Dan's obviously proven all year. He's been strong. You know, he's obviously more experienced in this style of racing.
A few parts have been a bit bumpy, which you can imagine. That's what happens in motorsport, and you've got a bit of a rivalry. But Ollie's a good guy. You know, we get on well, and the bits that we have had a little fallout here and there. We shook hands at the end of it, so it's been fine.
Yeah, we've got 4 races left. Certainly going to be giving it everything. Need to get as many points as we can ahead of Dan to keep the fight alive and see what happens going into Donington.
Yeah, to win the first TCR UK title, it is a big achievement. It would be good, you know. It is the first year of the championship. I think the championship has a lot of potential going on, so to be the first name down on the record books would be a great thing.
Well, it's time to find out what's going to happen in race 1 as we hand over to our race commentator, Andy McEwen.
Thank you very much, Bryn. Yes, this is all getting rather exciting now, isn't it? 4 more races left in the 2018 TCR UK Championship. It could be decided today. Then again, it could go down to the wire at Donington Park. There is a man who's hoping that the first of those 2 options is the one that comes true. Dan Lloyd, the championship leader, who had such dominant form throughout the first half of the season, but through the second half of the year, things have become an awful lot more challenging. But Dan, if he puts in a really good performance this weekend, could leave Croft, his local circuit, as the inaugural TCR UK champion. He's not going to have it easy, though, because he will be starting from the back of the grid in both of the 2 races today. That's because of a grid penalty that's carried over from an incident that happened last time out at Alton Park. So Dan Lloyd, despite the fact that he set the 4th fastest qualifying time yesterday, has to start at the back of the grid. not just for this race, but for the second race as well, or at least further back. He's 7th on the grid for race number 2. So Ollie Taylor, on the other hand, who put in a really good performance yesterday in qualifying. You can see there on the right of the screen, he is on the outside of row 1, second on the grid for race 1, and he actually nabbed pole position for race number 2. So they are at opposite ends of the grid. And they will really both have the same target. They will both want to win the pair of races today, because really for Ollie to keep his championship hopes alive, that's what he has to do. And for Dan to wrap it up today, realistically, that's what he's going to have to do, because even if Dan were to win both races, if Ollie were to finish second in both of them, it would still go down to Donington, albeit mathematically. But mathematically is all it takes sometimes when the pressure's on in a title decider. If it goes down to the last round, anything can happen. On pole position, though, we have, for the first time this year, Andreas Beckmann. Now, that is not the car that we're used to seeing Andreas racing in, of course. This is because this is the only round of TCR UK that actually clashes with the Scandinavian TCR Championship, in which Andreas and Jess Beckmann, his sister, usually race, and they've taken the decision, thankfully, to be here this weekend at Croft. We're very grateful to have them here. However, one of the West Coast racing cars is still required to be raced over in Scandinavia, so they find themselves without a Golf, and luckily the Sean Walkinshaw Racing Honda Civic, the FK2 shaped Civic, became available. It's being run by West Coast Racing, though, so it will score points for that team as well. They have, though, already wrapped up the team's title. More on that later, but by virtue of the fact that they were able to score points in qualifying yesterday, that was enough for them to pull clear in the team's championship. Andreas, his target is to try and beat Ollie Taylor to second in the championship, because he's only 58 points behind the Pyro driver, and with still 2 meetings left, 91 points available at each of those meetings. Mathematically, it's actually still possible for Andreas to win the championship, although that is fairly unlikely. But second place is definitely a possibility, and that will be his target. It's his first ever pole position in TCR. It's his first ever circuit racing pole position, because remember, the pair of Beckmans come from a rallycross background. This is their first season of circuit racing, and they've been getting quicker and quicker as the year's gone on. Jessica has qualified 4th on the grid after what was a topsy-turvy qualifying session yesterday, where we had a rain shower at the start of the session. The track got progressively drier. It was really the final 2 or 3 laps of the session where everything came alive, and it looked like Ollie Taylor had got the pole position, and then right at the death, on the very final lap of the session, Andreas Beckmann came through and took the pole position away from him. Stuart Lyons is 3rd on the grid. That is his best qualifying position of the season as well. We've got Finley Crocker making a welcome return as well in the Team Verizon Connect Honda Civic. Darrell Wilson also, who missed the last round at Alton Park, is back in his Astra. So the green flag gets green flag lap even gets underway here at Alton Park. Andreas Beckmann, Croft, excuse me, and Andreas Beckmann leads them down to the first corner at Clairvaux. And this is the scene of drama on many an occasion here at Croft. The first corner is notoriously difficult to get through on the first lap. Cold tyres as well, you get congested at the apex. Often lead to drama, and Dan Lloyd there at the back of the grid, really in the worst possible position, because he will have to drive through any potential incidents that occur on the opening lap, and he has to do so without getting involved in any contact, damaging his car, or potentially, of course, incurring further penalties. He's had 2 penalties this year for contact out on the circuit, so you can't accuse Dan of not trying hard enough. He certainly had to try harder and harder to hold on to this championship lead as the year has gone on. The gap stands at 76 points now, because, of course, Ollie Taylor outscored him yesterday. You score points based on your qualifying position. Ollie qualified 2nd, and Dan, although he starts at the back of the grid, he qualified 4th, so he scores the points for 4th position. He still has to start from the tail end of the grid. Therefore, what was a 78-point gap between the two of them now comes down to 76 points, with 4 races still to go. It's still all to play for in TCR UK this season. As the cars work their way up towards the far end of the circuit, and as they make their way towards out of the Jim Clark S's and in towards Barcroft, this is one of the really high-speed parts of the circuit where often we can have drama as well on cold tyres. In the wet, as we saw yesterday, it caught quite a lot of drivers out across the course of the day. But hopefully no such dramas today. Well, there is confirmation of your grid then. Andreas Beckmann with the fastest lap in qualifying, 6/10 clear of Oliver Taylor, but because of the changing conditions, we expect those lap times to be a lot closer in the race. Ollie Taylor really has to try and win this race to keep his championship hopes realistically alive. Stuart Lyons with his season best qualifying position in 3rd, and Jessica Beckmann in 4th position, already a podium finisher once this year. year. Can she do it again here at Croft? Finlay Crocker and Lewis Kent make up the third row of the grid. Daryl Wilson in the Astra makes a welcome return, but had some issues with the front splitter yesterday, which hampered his running. And Dan Lloyd will start from the back of the grid after a 5-place grid penalty for contact at Alton Park last time around. Well, they make their way through the natural amphitheatre section at the end of the lap through the complex. This is often the scene of overtaking, particularly the final corner, which is one of the slowest corners in British motorsport, the hairpin that leads the cars out onto the long drag past the pits down the pit straight. And if you don't defend well enough into the hairpin here, you often see the car behind taking a bit of a late lunge to get to the apex first. Contact is very common on that part of the circuit. Hopefully they'll avoid that in our 2 races today. The races, by the way, you will notice when we get going, are slightly shorter than they usually would be. That's because there's been a discussion between the teams and Yokohama, our tyre supplier, regarding concerns about the very abrasive nature of the Croft surface. Since there's no existing data about the use of these particular tyres here at Croft, the advice to run shorter races and to extend the time available to test was taken. So we have 20 minutes of racing ahead of us here at Croft as the revs start to rise. The lights go out, we're away and racing, and it's a good start by the looks of it from Beckman from pole position. Ollie Taylor, I think, is going to have to slot through into second position. Finlay Crocker's made a good start behind as well, and Jessica Beckman going backwards slightly as they head down in towards Clervaux for the first time. Beckman leads the way, Taylor second line, third, Crocker into fourth, and Dan Lloyd is already fifth. Dan Lloyd has had a mega start and has got past 3 cars already. Jessica Beckman really didn't get a good start, and nor, to be honest, did Lewis Kent. So it's Beckman that leads the mountain chicane for the first time, down the back straight towards Tower. To wrap up the title here today, he has to outscore Ollie Taylor. He can't finish behind him, so he has to get in front of the man that is currently running second in the race if he wants to take the title here at Croft, rather than having it go right down to the wire at Donington Park. Back through Clervaux they go then. Taylor's still running in second position there. They've got a tyre stack or a foam barrier, I think it is, actually on the apex of the first corner, trying to deter the drivers from corner cutting too much. Andreas Beckman really looks very comfortable here now. As we mentioned, it's a very abrasive surface here at Croft. Tyre management is absolutely crucial, so it's all well and good scarpering off into the distance early on, but you have to keep the tyres underneath you over the full 20 minutes, and that is easier said than done. We always see tyre management is a factor in TCR races, but even over this slightly shortened distance, we are still going to see tyre wear become a factor, and those who manage it the best are going to be the ones that come on strong throughout the second half of the race. Is that what Ollie Taylor is doing here? Is he just looking after the tyres in the early stages, or is this as good as it gets for the man who is second place in the race, second place in the championship? The battle that's really on, though, is the one for third place, because Dan Lloyd has now caught Stuart Lyons. Now, Stuart Lyons is not the easiest of people to overtake on the track. He will defend a position like his life depends on it, and Stuart, let's not forget, is looking for his first ever TCR podium. He came very close at Brands Hatch until he was overtaken late on by Howard Fuller, who at the time was driving the car that Andreas Beckman's in this race, and Stuart just missed out on that first podium. Well, he's in a podium position now, and if he can keep the championship leader behind him for another 17 minutes, he will take his first ever TCR podium. I somehow don't think he's going to have it quite as easy as that, though. Dan Lloyd is applying the pressure as they race across the start-finish line at the end of the second lap of the race. The lead gap is 1.1 seconds between Beckman and Taylor as Andreas sets the fastest lap of the race. Taylor to Lyons is 9 tenths. Lyons to Lloyd is less than a car length, though, and the West Coast Racing Volkswagen Golf TCR car is absolutely on the rear bumper of the Maximum Motorsport prepared Cupra as they go out of the chicane and down the back straight. Now, this is looking like Dan Lloyd is setting up for a move here. He pulls to the left-hand side of the road. Stuart Lyons is always going to defend down into the braking zone, but Dan sees a gap up the inside and goes for it. Now, remember, these two made contact at Alton Park. In fact, it was the contact between these two drivers that led to the penalty for Dan Lloyd, so there's no love lost, and they've rubbing paved again. Dan Lloyd on the grass, that is not the kind of risk that he wants to be taking, but this was the risk that he was always going to have to take. Starting at the back of the grid, he was always going to have to do some overtaking in this race, and Stuart Lyons is proving as difficult to overtake as ever he does. Lloyd's up the inside down towards Sunny. That's a really difficult place to overtake, though. It's a tricky braking zone. It's bumpy, it's downhill. You're turning through the right-hander at Barcroft as well, and what this is doing is it's bringing Finlay Crocker and Jessica Beckman into play. So 4 cars now dicing over third position. This is allowing the leaders to pull clear as well. But all the time, Dan Lloyd can see his big championship rival escaping further up the road. Through the complex they come then for the third time last, in towards the hairpin. Stuart Lyons not defending. Dan Lloyd, though, does have to defend because Finlay Crocker is now, if anything, a bigger concern to the championship leader than the car in front of him is. You can see all of the cars with grills full of leaves. The autumnal weather well and truly arrived here at Croft. It is very blustery, and the leaves that are scattered around the track are continuing to blow in the wind, and well, let's hope that leads to too many overheating issues as the race goes on. Back to where they go. The leaders are 2 tenths further apart than they were a lap ago now. 1.3 seconds is the margin between Beckman and Taylor. Dan Lloyd, though, looks like he's quicker than Stuart Lyons. He just can't quite find a way past. Down the straight they go towards Tower Corner, and Dan Lloyd hard onto the brakes. Just can't quite find a way past the Cupra for the time being. Stuart Lyons, well, he's defending robustly, but he's perfectly entitled to do so. This is a fight for position, of course, and Stuart really doesn't care all that much about the fact that Dan Lloyd is the championship leader, and Dan Lloyd is all over the place. He's up the inside down towards Barcroft. Oh my word, that was some really top-notch car control there for Dan Lloyd. He very nearly lost control of the car, but he held on to it, and Stuart Lyons holds on to the position, but only by the skin of his teeth. Finlay Crocker was running wide in the background as well, but Finlay not losing a position to Jessica Beckman just yet. Jessica is there with them and ready to take advantage if it all kicks off in front of her. Through the complex again, Dan Lloyd with a better exit through the right-hander, but he's on the outside line. Could this open the door maybe for Finlay Crocker to join in the fun? Not on the way into the corner. Dan Lloyd, of course, looking for the exit out of the corner, and he pulls himself along Stuart Lyons now, but he's on the outside line again, down towards the first corner. The drag race towards Clermont begins. Dan Lloyd dragging himself ever further alongside. He's on the outside line into the first corner. Stuart Lyons is on the inside. Who's bravest on the brakes? Stuart gets to the corner first. Dan Lloyd looking for the switch back, but can't quite do it. Down in the pit lane, meanwhile, I believe there's some news from Bryn.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Andy. I was just talking to the team for Lewis Kent. Apparently he took some damage there from being hit by another car. They've had to replace the rear tyres and pull a part of the car off. So the car is now lighter than it should be on fresh rubber.
Right, OK, thanks very much for that, Bryn. So he's back out on track at least. Dan Lloyd is back up the inside of Stuart Lyons, and this time might have done it. Oh, there's more contact, and Stuart Lyons is off. Stuart Lyons off into the field. I think it's broken the front suspension on the Cupra. There was contact between these two once again. And now is there damage? What's that front right corner like? The car suddenly seemed to veer left. Stuart's going to try and drag it back onto the track. I fear the car might be wounded, but Dan Lloyd is through. Now, what is Dan's car like? Is there any damage to the rear left corner of the VW? We've seen similar contact with the VWs caused some problems in the past. Remember, Andreas Beckman sustained damage from a very similar looking bit of contact that he had up at the hairpin there, but Dan seems to have got away with it for the time being, so Dan is now into third place. I'm sure there'll be a discussion after that one, though. Incidentally, that contact that Darrell Wilson had, I think, was with Lewis Kent, because that incident is being investigated. Contact between the two cars under investigation. There'll be further news on that as and when I get it. Dan Lloyd is now into third position, which to the disappointment, I'm sure, of Stuart Lyons, who now finds himself falling down the order. We'll have to wait to see whether or not the Maximum Motorsport car comes into the pit lane for any repairs. Dan Lloyd, though, in clean air now. What can he do? Can he catch the leaders? As long as the car's not damaged, you have to suspect that he probably can. Of course, only 12 minutes, just over 12 minutes left on the clock. He's coming out of the chicane now, down the back straight he goes. The lead gap, by the way, 2.5 seconds now between Andreas Beckman and Ollie Taylor. Dan Lloyd is third. Finlay Crocker is in fourth place. Now, his best finish of the year so far is sixth, so Finlay will just be looking, I think, to try and keep it on the road now. Of course, that car, it runs in the Verizon Connect livery, but it is run out of the Cairo Motorsport stable, so it would be in his sort of teammates' best interests if he could get up there and start messing with Dan Lloyd. But I think Dan should have the pace to pull away now. Through Barcroft he goes, down into the braking zone at Sunny Inn. This is the circuit at which Dan won his first ever car race back in Ginetta Juniors, so he knows the place well. Unsurprisingly, though, he is under investigation for that contact with Stuart Lyons. Now, that doesn't mean that there's a penalty coming. It just means that the clerk, of course, is looking at it. He's just making sure that there was no real blame there. If there was, though, then Dan may well find another penalty coming his way, and of course that could lead to further points penalties, and that will have a real effect on the championship outcome. This now becomes the closest battle on the track. This is Finlay Crocker trying to hold on to this fourth position from Jessica Beckman, who started in fourth place. Finlay was fifth, and Finlay, we saw, got a really good start off the line. Jessica not so quick away, and so they swapped positions at the start. Now Jessica would rather like to get that position back if at all possible. Through Clermont they go, 3/10 of a second apart at the line, but it's a visible gap really that we'll monitor now throughout the rest of the race. Speaking of gaps, the gap between Taylor and Lloyd is coming down. It came down to the tune of about 0.6 of a second on the previous lap, so Dan Lloyd is now only 2.7 seconds behind Ollie Taylor, who in turn is 2.7 seconds behind Andreas Beckman. The top three fairly equidistantly spaced for the time being as they run back through Tower Corner again, approaching half race distance. run towards the Jim Clark S's begins, and it seems like through the first half of this lap, Finley Crocker has been able to put a bit of a gap on Jessica, who had that emotional podium finish at Brands Hatch in the second race at Brands Hatch. That was her best finish of the season so far. She is actually only 2 points behind Lewis Kent in their fight for fourth position in the championship. So she is, if things finish as they are now, she's going to move back into fourth place in points. But with Lewis Kent running down in seventh position, actually, it looks unlikely that he's going to be able to beat her in this one. So Jessica Beckman looking good for that fourth place in the championship. She is looking for fourth place in this race, if it's all possible, though. Back through the hairpin they go, and we are continuing to monitor the lap times. And you can see that the lap times are dropping off now. They're running about a second or so away from their fastest lap times. Andreas Beckman with a 27.8, but Ollie Taylor with a 28.5. Ollie just can't keep up with Andreas, who is as flamboyant as ever there. He may be in a new car this weekend, but it doesn't seem to be holding him back. If anything, he's having, well, quite clearly, his best showing so far in the series, qualifying on pole position for the first time, leading the race with less than half of it to go. And so far, at least, there doesn't really seem to be all that much indication that the tyres are going away from him. This FK2 Civic is known for being pretty kind on his tyres, but Andreas Beckman always gets the maximum out of any car that he's in. So whether or not he's going to punish these tyres too much awaits to be seen. But so far, his lap times are not dropping off quite as much as some of the other drivers are. Ollie Taylor is lapping over a second away from his previous best lap time. Dan Lloyd, however, is lapping about half a second away from his best lap. So Dan, despite the fact that he's had to do quite a lot of overtaking in the first half of the race, he is actually still running at a really decent pace. He's now only 2 seconds behind Dan Lloyd. So if he took another 6 or 7 tenths out of him on the previous lap, there is Ollie Taylor in second place, Dan Lloyd in third. And Dan Lloyd starting to close in on his big rival now. As I said, he needs to beat Ollie Taylor over the course of the weekend. He needs to outscore him by 13 points if he wants to take the title this weekend. So he has to get in front of Ollie, really. He can't just afford to sit in third position. He needs to get in front of the number 32 car. The gap now of 1.25 seconds. So I think when he gets to him, Dan has to try and make a move. Well, whilst that gap is coming down, let's head down into the pit lane and find out what Bryn's got for us.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I've got a little bit more info about Lewis Kent. So we know that he's running near the back, or in fact at the back, because of that damage that he had to his car. But they've also got a clutch issue. If you listen to the car on the pit straight, actually, you can hear it. It suddenly spins up like he's changing down the gear. So they've got slight clutch issues. Not sure what the problem is, but they're going to try and have a look at it between this race and the next.
That is a shame for Lewis, who was fancying his chances actually this weekend, because this is a circuit that should suit the Hyundai. It's quick in a straight line. It's pretty good through the tight corners as well. This should be a circuit that suited Lewis pretty well, but things not really going to plan. He is running around in 7th place, and he needs all of the points that he can get if he does want to finish ahead of Jessica Beckman for 4th in the championship. We've still got another race to go, of course, today, and 2 at Donington Park, so that is definitely a battle that's going to go right down to the wire. Is the championship fight going to go down to the wire, though? Is Ollie Taylor going to be able to keep Dan Lloyd behind him? It's not necessarily the end of the world if Dan gets in front of him, but if Dan were to win the race with Ollie third, then that would be a 10-point swing. So Dan would only have to outscore Ollie by 1 position on the track, potentially, in race number 2 to take the title. So if Dan can get past Ollie quickly, he might just have time to chase down the race leader. Across the line we go again. The lead gap I'm going to predict is going out. Yes, it is 4.2 seconds. The gap between second and third is under 1 second for the first time. 6 tenths is all that separates the top 2 in the championship. We've seen them go toe-to-toe on so many occasions, particularly through the second half of the year. They had a great battle at Brands Hatch. They had that rather controversial battle at Castle Combe, where they made contact on the last lap, and Dan Lloyd won the race on the road and was later penalised. And then they had another wheel-to-wheel exchange at Alton Park, where Ollie actually got around the outside of Dan, down at Ireland Bend, which was a really brave move. And it showed just how seriously Ollie is taking this championship challenge. But he's a bit wide into Tower. It almost looks as though Ollie Taylor was struggling for tyre wear here, more than some of the other cars out on the track, which is not necessarily what we expected. Through the Jim Clark S's they go again, and Dan Lloyd sizing up the prey. Is he going to be able to make his move, and how much of a risk is he willing to take? Because whilst he wants to win the championship this weekend, it's not essential that he does. He will still fancy his chances going into Donington Park as the comfortable championship leader. The more comfortable that championship lead is, then the lower his heart rate will be over the course of that final weekend of the year. So if he can wrap it up this weekend, That will certainly take the pressure off. Through the complex they go. Taylor in second place, Lloyd in third, coming down to three-quarter race distance now, so just over 5 minutes still remain. And Dan is now within striking range. Ollie knows it. He defends the inside line into the hairpin. Watch for the exit speed here down the pit straight. Well, they're both fairly even off the corner, actually. Remember, the Civic has had some compensation weight added for this weekend. The Golf has lost some weight. So comparatively speaking, the Golf, in theory, should be the quicker cars, but right now, it's a very equal match. News, hopefully no significant damage, and we wouldn't want that to hurt his chances in the second race later on, in which Stewart will be lining up actually back up grid. That one's going to need all of the performance that he can get out of it. So that's the Motorsport Cooper in the second race. Here is the battle though for second place in this race. Ollie Taylor and Dan Lloyd, championship rivals, going toe-to-toe once again here at Croft as they make their way down towards Sonny and Ollie Taylor. You can see there the car did not want to turn in. I do think Ollie is struggling for front-end grip. Dan Lloyd, on the other hand, really seems to have a car that is still underneath him. He's forcing Ollie to defend heavily down towards the complex. This is another part of the circuit where you really need the front of the car to be working well, and Taylor runs out wide. Lloyd almost alongside, and Dan has to be careful how he does this. Any contact could be disastrous for his championship hopes, and again he thought about going up the inside of the hairpin. Taylor runs out wide though, and this is Dan Lloyd's opportunity. He gets up the inside line. Taylor will have to fight him down towards turn number one, but Ollie will have the inside line for the corner. Another drag race across the start-finish line. Officially, as they cross the timing beam, Dan Lloyd was 67 thousandths of a second behind, but he's on the wrong side of the road into the braking zone. Taylor on the inside, clicks the curve and stays in front. Great driving from Ollie Taylor there. Dan Lloyd wipes out the floppy marker post as he does everything he can to stay within striking range as they go down the back straight. 3 minutes and 20 seconds left. Can Ollie Taylor do this? It would be really significant for him if he could keep Dan Lloyd behind, but that is seeming like an almost impossible task at the moment. Into the next braking zone. This is where Dan will try to, again, get the better exit from the corner maybe and get the run down towards the Jim Clark S's. If Taylor is struggling with understeer, then that will definitely be Dan Lloyd's best opportunity to get through. But Ollie Taylor is not a bad defensive driver. We've seen that on occasions already this year. He knows how to keep a potentially quicker car behind him. See, through this part of the circuit, through the high-speed corners, Taylor seems to gap the Golf. It's through the low-speed corners where you really rely on the mechanical grip from the front tyres. That's where the Golf is closing in. Through Sonny in, through Sonny out, and back down the back straight towards the complex again. And this is where Dan got oh so close to making the move stick a lap ago. Can he do anything about him this time? I reckon we'll have 2 more laps to go after this, so plenty of time for Dan to do this. Plenty of time for Ollie Taylor to have to keep his elbows out. Down towards the hairpin they go. Taylor will defend the inside. He can't afford to run out as wide as he did a lap ago though, because Dan won't need a second opportunity to get back on the inside. Oh, there's almost a rub between the two of them. They just avoided contact on the exit of the corner, but Ollie Taylor drove very cleverly there. He went in on the defensive line. Usually that would mean that he would run wide on the exit and Dan would have to speed out of the corner, but Ollie just got to the apex and almost stopped the car dead so as to halt the momentum of the car behind him. Dan had to back off, otherwise he was going to run into the back of the Honda, and that is the last thing that either of these drivers wants to happen. Through the chicane again. 2 laps to go in the first race of the weekend here at Croft, round number 11 of what has been a fascinating season of TCR UK racing. Many people thought that Dan Lloyd would have already wrapped up the title by the time he arrived here in the northeast. That has not happened, and if he can't get past Ollie Taylor in this race, it may not happen until Donington Park, if at all. Back out of the right hand they go again. Taylor seems now almost to be learning where Dan Lloyd is quicker than him. He's learning where he needs to defend and how to defend indeed, without then opening the door at the next corner. And Dan Lloyd is not quite as close as they go through Barcroft and into Sonny in. Tan using all of the curb and more on the apex of the quick right-hander. It's not a particularly vicious curve at that corner though, so you can afford to take some liberties through the right-hander at Barcroft. Then get it back online into the Sonny complex. Now into the complex, the really technical complex corners at the end of what is now the penultimate lap of the race. 1 more lap to go. And Dan Lloyd, I'm sure, has not given up on this one. He is looking to the outside, then dives back to the inside, but he realised that was a risky manoeuvre to try and make as well. Out of the hairpin again, the Golf gets the tighter run out of the turn, but Ollie Taylor took a corner still seems to have decent traction. It's just mid-corner where he's struggling. And let us not forget, though, in the midst of all of this battling going on behind the championship, Andreas Beckmann is potentially only a lap away from his first ever TCR race victory and becoming the 4th different winner of the season. But all eyes are on this fight for second place, as Ollie Taylor and Dan Lloyd are inches apart as they turn through the never-ending right-hander at Hawthorne. That's one of the corners that really does punish the front left tyre in a front-wheel drive touring car. But Ollie gets out of the corner really well. Dan is not, I don't think, close enough to attack down towards Tower. Taylor breaks a bit earlier than the Golf, who has a little look to the inside, decides better of it, then cuts back to the outside, try and get the run towards the S's. But now you can see Dan Lloyd's car is starting to scrabble for grip a bit on the exit of the corner. Their lap times are now over 2 seconds away from what their best laps were early on in the race. So they really are struggling for grip here, but that's just the nature of the abrasive circuit here at Croft. Ollie Taylor, well, has he done enough? There are still a couple of overtaking opportunities left. This was a potential one down at Sunny. More than likely, if the move's going to come, it's going to happen in the last few corners. Andreas Beckmann, though, is only 2 corners away from his first appearance on the top step of the podium in TCR racing. In fact, in any form of circuit racing, this is going to be a really emotional moment for the Beckmanns. They've had podiums, both Andreas and Jessica, but this is the first victory in TCR UK for Andreas Beckmann. A fantastic lights-to-flag victory for the Swedish driver. What is going to happen for second position? It's going to be Ollie Taylor, I think. Ollie Taylor flashes the lights, and that was a pivotal result because he takes 5 more valuable championship points out of Dan Lloyd, who comes home in 3rd place. Finley Crocker fends off Jessica Beckmann for 4th. Jessica will come home in the top 5. Lewis Kent will be a couple of laps down in the end after his pit lane visit in 6th. Stuart Lyons will be 7th. Darrell Wilson, who I believe was running at the flag, but all the way down in 8th position. But Andreas Beckmann, well, it's his moment really now, isn't it? He got the great start, led into the first corner, and then never really looked back. He won in the end by 7.8 seconds, and that is not necessarily what many of us expected to happen. I think I certainly expected Ollie Taylor to be able to give him a bit more of a run for his money, but as it was, Ollie clearly struggled for pace. Andreas didn't, and was able to pull away to take the victory. He also took the fastest lap in that race as well, 1:26.9, which he set quite early on in the race, of course. The fastest laps, unsurprisingly, coming in the early stages. But Andreas Beckmann with the victory here in round 11 of the TCR UK Championship, and a dominant one as well. Well, Andreas, who is 3rd in the championship, of course, as I said, was 58 points behind Ollie Taylor coming into this weekend. In 2nd, he's taken 5 points out of him there. It's baby steps, but it could still happen. He could still close in on Ollie if Ollie were to have some dramas throughout the remaining 3 races of the season. One more to come here, of course, at Croft later on this afternoon, and then the final 2 at Donington Park in October. Well, for Ollie Taylor, he's done everything he can there to keep the championship alive for as long as possible. The gap was 76 points between himself and Dan Lloyd. It will now come down to 71 points with, as I said, 91 available each weekend. So it's all to play for. And if Dan were to have some sort of an issue, and he nearly did in that race, of course, that contact that he had with Stuart Lyons could so easily have put them both out of the race. As it was, Dan seemed to get away with it unscathed. But it's another race now in which Ollie Taylor has beaten him. So Andreas Beckmann takes the race victory. It's 2 different shapes of the Honda Civic Type R at the front of the field. The FK2 takes the victory, and the FK7 of Ollie Taylor in 2nd place, ahead of his big rival Dan Lloyd, who comes home in 3rd. Finley Crocker is 4th position. That's his best finish of the year so far, and Jessica Beckmann rounds out another good race with another top 5 finish. Lewis Kent comes home in 6th, a lap down after a pit stop. The same what can be said of Stuart Lyons, of course, who pitted after the contact that he had with Dan Lloyd, which, as far as we know, is still under investigation. With Darrell Wilson, I believe, wasn't actually classified as a finisher. He wasn't running at the end of the race, so his return to the championship, unfortunately, not going all that well. Well, here are the highlights of what could prove to be a pivotal race in the 2018 title race. It was Andreas Beckmann who won the race to turn 1 with a storming start. Ollie Taylor tried everything he could to get past him, but had to settle in behind the youngster in the early stages. Darrell Wilson's race did not get off to a good start. He was on the grass coming out of Sunny on the first lap and fell right to the back of the field. Dan Lloyd was getting stuck in. He made a great start, making progress left, right and centre, but then came unstuck as he was trying to get past Stuart Lyons. The pair made contact once at Tower. Dan nearly lost it through the Jim Clark S's, and then it all came to a head when Stuart left a gap on the inside. Lloyd went to the inside line and contact was made. Stuart went off the road. Dan just about avoided damaging the car and then set about chasing after his championship rival Ollie Taylor, who seemed to be struggling for pace as the race went on. There were a few occasions where the championship leader was able to get alongside his big rival, most notably coming through the complex about 2/3 of the way through the race, where it looked as though Dan might have been able to make the move stick. A mistake at the hairpin for Ollie meant that Lloyd got up the inside onto the pit straight, but that was the wrong side of the road down into turn 1, and Ollie Taylor was just about able to fend him off. The pressure was on though for the remaining few laps. Dan kept on trying to get up the inside, but Ollie Taylor wasn't making any mistakes. He was defending cleverly, and Dan Lloyd knew that he could not afford any contact between the two of them. This was all going on though some 7 seconds behind the eventual race winner, Andreas Beckman, who gets his first ever victory in TCR racing. I'd imagine he's pretty happy with that one.
I should hope so too. I'll find out actually. Andreas, congratulations, lights to flag. That was easy, wasn't it?
No, it was definitely not easy. I pushed everything I had all the time, and I was, especially in the beginning, I was worried, and also in the end, I saw Dan was catching Ollie, so I tried to just do my own thing and keep tires alive until then. So. That battle behind you sort of helped you as well, really, because while they were focusing on their own thing, you could just look at that open track. Yeah, definitely. It was definitely an advantage to be in the front and always have no one in front of you. It was very good for me. So your first win in TCR UK, congratulations. Thank you very much. I'm so happy. Yeah, what's it mean to you though to get your first win? You've had podiums in the past, you've had podiums taken away from you in the past as well, but your first win. It's definitely something special. I have been very close a couple of times this year, and I have definitely had the speed, but never done really a complete race. So I'm really pleased with this. Well done, congratulations. Thank you very much. So there's our race winner. Let's grab third place. Let's go. We're going to do a bit of a mixed order. Let's go to teammate there, Dan Lloyd, leading the championships and had some points taken away from you, but that was a pretty good battle from you. Yeah, I had a really good start off the line and got going and had some good pace. Took me ages to get past Stuart. He was all over the place, but got past him in the end and closed the gap to Ollie quite quickly, and then by the time I got to him, I had nothing left in my front tyres, so even though I was quicker, it's hard to make a move and get past. So, but it's still good points, got from last up onto the podium, and massively happy for my teammate Andreas, who did a mega job. You certainly did. For you, is that points gained or points lost? Because now the gap is 71 points. Do you look at that, or you just think, well, actually, this is now get as many points as I can and keep on going? This weekend was just about getting the points and keeping on going. We knew we had a grid place penalty to serve here as well, so it was always going to be tough. So points in the bag, goes to the championship, which is the main thing we need to get, and so it's a good result, yeah. And you've got to do it all again in race 2. Exactly, second to last in race 2 again, so try and make my way through a little bit quicker while I've still got some tyres, yeah. Well done. Thank you. So there's Dan Lloyd, second or third place, but still pushing for the title. The man who got to second was pushed all the way there. Dan caught and then pushed and pushed and pushed, but second, well done. You had to keep him behind, didn't you? Yeah, I think it was. Just keep Dan behind at all costs. Great result for Andreas. He just, had the pace. I was trying to find a good balance of pace and tyres. Literally had no tyres left at the end there when Dan mounted an attack. So attack on Andreas was sort of out of the question. Just sort of think, yep, second place, we'll take this, let's keep it. So yeah, trying to just not kill the tyres in too much of a frantic state, but obviously Dan's quick around here. He's shown here that he's quick here, so there's going to be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, managed to hold him off, come close a little bit at the end, a couple of times at the chicane, but just literally had nothing left on the front end, trying to get the car stopped and turned and get it fired out again. So but it was a good race, yeah, good fun. Yeah. There's definitely some hairy moments coming out of the hairpin on this drag race down to the right-hander there, where you were side by side, but you had the inside line each time. Yeah, we did. Yeah, so there's a couple of lines coming into the complex, into that last hairpin. I could see in the mirror in the corner of my eye, Dan was diving out wide to try and get the cutback. So I just had to try and stop the thing on the apex so that he couldn't get a run on me. But one time where we did have a drag, I just couldn't stop it enough. He got up the inside, but I just thought, I'm not going to brake until you brake, and we went into turn 1 side by side. Absolutely. Now 71 points is the gap. You've cut 7 points so far this weekend. Yeah, it's a points race. We just need to focus on getting as many points from each race that we can. In a good position to start pole for the next race. We just need to get our heads down and get ahead, and hopefully Dan doesn't fight his way through the pack quite so quickly. Fair enough. Go and get your trophy. Well done. Okay, thanks very much. So there you go. Top 3. Ollie Taylor, pretty happy as you'd imagine, really, getting those points back and down. He's now closed the gap, as Andy was saying, down to 71 points. So a 7-point gain so far this weekend. He's got to do it all again, though, in the second race of the day. Andy, we've got the podium coming up, but just as we get set for that, back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bryn. And this is why I love this time of year, as championships are starting to get to that really pivotal moment where every point matters. It's very easy to look at a 71-point gap and think, well, Dan Lloyd's got it won already. Surely there's no way Ollie Taylor's going to be able to close that gap. But all it takes is one non-finish for Dan and a victory for Ollie Taylor, and all of a sudden the gap starts being carved into. And you know, this is touring car racing at the end of the day. We saw a few little bits of contact throughout that race, any one of which could have put any one of those drivers out of contention, and all of a sudden it sort of turns the championship equation on its head. Don't forget as well that in race number 2, Andreas Beckmann, who won this race from pole position, will only start 5th on the grid, whereas Ollie Taylor will be on pole position. So Ollie, in theory, should have a slightly easier time of it in race 2. Dan, again, will be coming from the back row of the grid, 7th, I believe, on the grid for race number 2 later on. So Ollie Taylor, you'd have to say, starts as the favourite for a victory in race number 2. If he can win the race, he then just has to hope that some sort of misfortune befalls Dan Lloyd. But whether or not that will happen is in the hands of the racing gods, and they are keeping their plans very much close to their chest for the time being. We have no idea what is going to happen in the remaining 3 races of the TCR UK Championship. Make sure you're around for the second race of the day later on with that slightly jumbled grid. Darrell Wilson actually is on the front row of the grid for that race, and Lewis Kent gets another shot at a slightly better start, hopefully this time from 3rd on the grid. So with some drivers towards the sharp end that weren't at the sharp end in this race, and still the prospect of Dan and Andreas coming from further back in the order, race 2 looks set to be even more intense than race 1 was. Good to see a decent crowd on hand here, braving the bright but blustery conditions here at Croft. It's not that warm, and so I think that those particular spectators there, they have the right idea, wrapping up in as many layers as they can and trying to find some shelter from the wind. But they are going to be provided with some great racing over the day. It's great to have them all here supporting TCR UK in this inaugural season. Well, the drivers have made it round to the podium now, and they are about to be introduced up onto, well, what is a very familiar position for Dan Lloyd. He's used to being on the podium, maybe a little bit more used to being one step over to the left, but 3rd place, valuable points for the championship leader, who has a slightly reduced margin now over Ollie Taylor. 71 points it is, as we've been saying, going into race number 2 later on. Ollie gets up onto the 2nd step of the podium. Jen from TCR UK is going to be handing the winner's trophy for the first time ever to Andreas Beckmann, who gets the hook, he makes his way onto the top step, and that was a sublime drive from the youngster. You wouldn't believe that that was the first time he'd ever raced that car, and he drove like a consummate pro, and I think that is a man who's got a very bright future ahead of him. He's a very, very quick driver, and proved today that he can drive in his head as well. Well, a fantastic opening race of the weekend here for TCR UK. Their second race is coming up a little bit later on, of course. As I mentioned, it's got that reverse grid element to it as well. What is going to happen? Can Dan Lloyd take the title? Mathematically, he can still win it in race 2 later on, but only if he beats Ollie Taylor by quite a few points. Ollie, of course, taking those 5 points out of him this week, in this first race, excuse me. Dan really does have to try and win that second race to have any chance of wrapping it up before he goes Donington Park. It's going to be a fascinating 20 minutes of racing, and we hope you'll join us for it later on. For the time being, though, it's down to the drivers to celebrate in style after what was a very, very entertaining first race of the weekend. The champagne sprays for a first-time victor in the championship, Andreas Beckmann. Congratulations to him. Can he do the double later on in the afternoon? Tune in later on to find out.